Icon ta theou. That's the phrase that's going to kickstart us this time. This week we're talking about kindness as one of the fruit of the Spirit. Now, what on earth does this bewildering Greek phrase, icon ta theou, have to do with kindness? Well, let's break it down. Icon ta theou is the Greek phrase for image of God, which is a concept that we've dropped before, especially in Sunday school. And you've probably heard it if you've been around church circles at all. It comes to us from the first book of Genesis, where God says, let us make them in our image. And there's a few ways that we can understand that passage. An icon can be, well, it's not just image, it can be like an imprint. Like when you drop wax onto an envelope to seal it, and then you put, this is like kings in medieval ages, they would have their signet and they press it into the wax to seal who it was. So that's like an imprint. Icon or image, it could also be reflection, because in ancient times in the Hebrew scriptures, not everybody had mirrors, but you could polish metal. So there could be a reflection. And I'm doing this because sometimes you could polish your shield, just like some of the Greek armies. So you and I are imprinted with the image of God. We reflect the image of God. We were made in the image of God, just like a painting, all right? But there's a part of us qualitatively inside my soul, inside your soul, something in there is imprinted or reflecting or just the image of God. It has very little to do with how we look physically, whether or not we've got dark hair or blue eyes or green eyes. I don't have green eyes, I've got brown eyes. But the external circumstances of how you look isn't what makes you in the image of God. It's something far deeper than that. And that's wonderful. Now, what does that have to do with kindness? Well, we live in a culture that has a different narrative. That it doesn't say that we're made in the image of God. It just says that we are hominids, that we are just like humanoids. We are just descendants from an earlier species. But there's something unique that happens when we say that we have the image of God. Kindness is important because kindness always recognizes that the person you're talking to is in the image of God. Even the people that you think are terrible. And that's why this is a groundbreaking thing, kindness. The rest of the world would rather say, if you meet up against someone and you don't like them, you don't have to affirm the inherent dignity within them. You don't have to affirm that that person is of inestimable, of worth that cannot be quantitated. Let's go with that. But Bernard of Clairvaux, who we understand as being one of the last church fathers, he was around during the year 1100. He wrote a number of really impressive things. Most people don't even know about the first 1,000 years of church history. There were men and women that were writing and responding to particular things, and we actually understand him as being one of the last of those greats before we moved into like Reformation and medieval era, right? Now, he says this: everyone is in the image of God, but not everyone has the likeness. Well, what does that mean? It means this. You and I might be imprinted. We might reflect the image of God, but there might be days or weeks, months, or even years where we don't look very much like Jesus. Our actions, our motivations, the way we go about relating to our family, our brothers or sisters, or friends or neighbors may not look very much like Jesus. And that's a problem because there's the image of God and likeness of Jesus. And Bernard of Clairvaux was smart enough to realize that there's a distinction. There's something separate about those two things, because you and I might always be in the image of God, but not always be living in the likeness of Jesus. Now, here's where kindness shows up again. Kindness says, I will treat this person because they are the image of God with dignity and value and kindness, even when they don't look like Jesus with their actions, with their motivations, with their words. You see, kindness does something really fascinating. The rest of the world wants to say that you should only look up to someone because they're impressive, because of what they do. Kindness says that you will treat people well because of what they are, not what they do. Kindness says, I recognize that you are in the image of God, but you don't have very much likeness to Jesus right now, yet I will still treat you as the image of God that you are, and then go to the next step further and say, have you thought about looking a little bit more like Jesus with your actions and motivations and words and things? You see, kindness, if I were to say anything, it's not actually a weak virtue. And virtue, it's the opposite of a vice. A virtue is something, a character trait, or it's something about you that's highly esteemable. Kindness is not weak. And in fact, kindness is quite strong. Can we say that it's courageous? Maybe. But we can definitely say kindness has deep eyes and is willing to look deeply at people and is willing to look deeply at them past the fact that they don't look like Jesus to the second deeper thing that says, but they're still in the image of God, and therefore I still need to treat them with kindness. So in this world, we tend not to treat people kindly. Is that right? Especially people who are maybe beneath us on the totem pole, maybe at work, or maybe on whatever team you're a part of. Sometimes we treat people who make less than we do with less kindness. I mean, how do you treat your waiter or your waitress, back before COVID? Kindness says, I don't care what that person's status is in life. I don't care if they're popular or not. That person is in the image of God. And even though that person over there doesn't have the likeness of Jesus, I will still choose to be virtuous, just like Jesus, and respect the inherent dignity of that person who is also made in the icon ta theou. So this week, try to do that. Make a conscious decision to always respect the icon ta theou inside every person that you know, even those people that don't have a likeness of Jesus on that particular day. And then you just start to see, kindness actually plays completely different rules than the rest of the world. So let's live into that, all right? Grace and peace, be well.